The fasting mimicking diet developed by Valter Longo at USC may be the most effective natural free testosterone intervention available, and old school bodybuilders discovered it by accident decades before the science actually caught up. Yes, this is about SHBG, free testosterone, and why what you've been told about fasting and testosterone is completely backwards. A while ago, I met Dave at Gold's Gym in the Valley about 3 years ago. He was 64 and still wearing the same cutoff black tank from 1994 with a hole near his left shoulder, and he was still deadlifting 415 pounds for 3 reps like it was a warm-up. He had a pretty good tan from squatting outdoors in July, and he kept calling me kid even though I'm 24. But one afternoon, he caught me buying a low-carb protein shake after my lift and started laughing. He said, "You know what we used to do before a show in the 90s? We'd dry out for 5 days. No carbs, barely any food, just water and a little chicken. And by day 6, you'd be vascular, strong, and your wife would suddenly remember you existed." I laughed politely and went back to buying it. 2 years later, I read a paper from the University of Southern California and almost dropped my phone. Because Dave wasn't doing bro science. Dave was doing a fasting mimicking diet. That's the thing about old school bodybuilders. They were running experiments on themselves with no real life data, no control group, and absolutely no shame. And every now and then they stumbled onto something that took the lab coats another 20 years to formally describe. The 5-day pre-contest dry out is one of those things. The protocol of Valter Longo published at USC's Longevity Institute, the one he named the fasting mimicking diet, is structurally almost identical to what guys like Dave were doing in their garages while listening to heavy metal. Now let me explain what's actually happening with the testosterone and the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis here, because the headline version of the story is wrong. Most fasting content online says fasting boosts testosterone. It doesn't. Multiple studies say the opposite. A 2022 review published in the journal Nutrients led author Sofia Cienfuegos out of the University of Illinois, Chicago, looked at every human trial on intermediate fasting and reproductive hormones. In lean, physically active young men, time-restricted eating consistently lowered total testosterone over 4 to 44 weeks. Not raised, lowered. So if you're a 28-year-old who lifts 4 days a week and you've been doing those fasts for a year because some podcast guy told you it would turn you into a Roman statue, I got bad news. You probably tanked your numbers. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's where Dave was actually onto something. There's a protein called sex hormone-binding globulin, otherwise known as SHBG. It floats around in your blood, and it grabs onto testosterone like a possessive ex. Once SHBG has its hands on your testosterone molecule, that testosterone is biologically useless. It's locked up. It can't enter cells, and it can't activate androgen receptors. Can't do anything. The number on your lab printout, total testosterone, includes all that locked up testosterone. The number that actually matters, the one almost no doctor will run unless you specifically ask, is free testosterone. That's the unlocked version, the bioavailable version, the version that, works. So when you see a guy that has total T of 750 walking around looking soft and tired with no libido, what's almost always happening is high SHBG. The testosterone is there, he just can't use it. It's like having a Lamborghini in the garage but not having the keys. And the lever that controls SHBG more than almost anything else is insulin sensitivity. This is where the 90s bodybuilders accidentally cracked the code. When Dave dried out for 5 days before the show, he was trying to optimize his SHBG. He didn't know what that was, obviously, but he probably thought it was a Honda model. But what he was doing mechanically was crashing his insulin and his visceral fat and forcing his body into ketosis. The same metabolic state Longo would later patent and put in a kit you could buy on Amazon for $250 called Prolon. Longo's actual protocol is 5 days of very low calories, around 1100 on day 1 and dropping to about 700 for days 2 through 5. Low protein, around 9%. Low sugar, mostly plant-based fats, and you do it once a quarter, sometimes once a month if you're aggressive. In his 2017 trial published in Science Translational Medicine, 100 adults ran 3 cycles of this protocol over 3 months, and their IGF-1 dropped. Also, their C-reactive protein dropped, fasting glucose dropped, visceral fat dropped, and in the participants who started with metabolic problems, the changes were the largest. Now notice he wasn't measuring free testosterone. Almost nobody in the longevity world is. They're tracking IGF-1, ketones, glucose, and inflation markers. But here's the thing. If you improve insulin sensitivity and drop visceral fat, you drop SHBG. And if you drop SHBG without dropping total testosterone in the long run, you raised free testosterone by default. The math just works out that way. It's basic. Now I want to be honest about something, because the bro corner of the internet is going to misquote this video the second I post it. During the 5 days of the fast itself, your testosterone goes down. Longo says this on a record. In 2018 interview with Carl Fitzgerald, he straight up said calorie restriction lowers lowers testosterone in the short term. He straight up said that calorie restriction lowers testosterone in the short term. There's a 2024 paper out of KU Leuven, who's the lead author of Brent Casinello and his team, where they put men on 3 weeks of ketogenic dieting and SHBG went from 25 to 31 nanomoles per liter. Total testosterone was unchanged, but the free portion was effectively suppressed by the rise in SHBG. Meanwhile, cortisol levels typically spike during the extended fasting periods, which can further suppress luteinizing hormone production. So yes, while you're in it, your numbers look bad. This is exactly what fooled the bodybuilders for decades into thinking fasting was catabolic and stupid. They dry out, feel weaker, and conclude the whole approach was a mistake. But what they didn't know to do is what Dave actually did know to do, because he'd been doing it for 40 years, was refeed properly afterwards. The magic isn't in the fast, the magic is in the rebound. But here's where I want to stop and talk to you for a second, because if you're still watching, you're probably the kind of person who's been told their entire adult life that the answer to feeling tired and soft is to add something, another supplement, another peptide, another $14 bag of beef organ powder, maybe even TRT. And what I'm telling you, what Longo's data is telling you, what Dave was telling you in a different language, is that the lever you're looking for is in the opposite direction. The answer is subtraction for 5 days, quarterly. That's it. I know it doesn't sound like a hack. The word hack implies something quick and clear. This is neither. It's slow and a little miserable, and you'll be cold on day 3. But anything worth having is worth it. But it is mechanically the most defensible free testosterone intervention I have found on a 3 reviewed literature for guys who already have some visceral fat to lose and desk jobs. And that's most men over 35 who aren't on TRT. But back to Dave though, because I owe him. After he gave me his speech that one day, I kept in contact and he showed me his blood work. He kept a folder of it in his bag, like some people carry photos of their kids. That's how you know he's legit. His total testosterone was 640. Not impressive for a man who looked like that. But his free testosterone was 26 picograms per millimeter, which for a 64-year-old is borderline absurd. His SHBG was 22. Mine at 24 was 48. He had more free testosterone in his blood than I did, with a third less total. Because his ratio was better, because his insulin sensitivity was also better. But because for 30 years he had been doing a periodic 5-day starvation episodes and didn't realize he was running the exact protocol an Italian gerontologist would later get NIH funding to formalize. The other piece I want to mention briefly is the type of fasting matters. Enormously. Cienfuegos was specific about this in a review published in Nutrients. Daily time-restricted eating, the 16 to 8 you see everywhere, to 18 to 6, and the 1 meal a day stuff. That pattern in lean active men suppresses testosterone with no SHBG benefit. You're getting the catabolic hit without the metabolic reset or the deep benefits that come with prolonged fasting. It's the worst of both worlds. Periodic prolonged fasting, the 5-day kind, gives you the deep benefits and insulin reset, and then you need to refeed for 85 days before doing that again. Your body has time to actually rebuild. There's a reason no successful bodybuilder in history has lived on daily intermediate fasting. They eat a lot. They just clear the system periodically. That's why you see after these shows, these big lifters just pig out on everything. And one more thing about the Prolong kit, you don't need it. It's a convenient version of the protocol with the macros pre-measured onto little boxes. And if buying it makes you actually do it, then great. But you can replicate it with steamed vegetables, olive oil, small amount of nuts, some plain tea, stuff like that. Longo himself has said this publicly. The kit exists for compliance, not for some propriety nutrient profile. I do have 2 other videos on this, so go ahead and check out the channel. A few months after that conversation in the gym, I tried it. 5 days, pretty damn miserable, and day 3, I was wearing a hoodie indoors. I got blood work done 2 weeks after I finished refeeding, and my SHBG had dropped from 48 to 36. My total T was essentially flat. My free T went up almost by 40%. I actually texted Dave with a screenshot, and all he said back was, "I told you." And he still wears a tank top when I see him, and he still calls me kid. And every time I see him, it's a contest. Man, the bodybuilders just got it first. They didn't need the science. They knew exactly what to do by testing it themselves while everyone was arguing about breakfast.